Hello and welcome to the video. If you are new to this channel, my name is, my hair. My name is Marris, and today I will be discussing all of the books that I read in quarter two of this year. So I just realized there's not a bottom thing here. If you haven't seen it already and are curious as to why all of my books look like this, except for Queen of Nothing, I will put the video up here or up on in the card above so you can check that out. Otherwise, let's get right into the video. So if you haven't seen one of my book video reading list video things before, this is my reading journal and I keep all of my stuff in here. So for quarter two, this is everything I read April, May, June of this year. It's currently June 31st, but I have nothing that I will be finishing today. I'm not one of those people that reads like 30 books in a month because I am kind of a slow reader, but I think I still read. How many have I read? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then probably like 4 audiobooks, I don't know. So yeah, there's still a little bit of substance and there's not quite enough to make a video a month, so I do quarterly. So starting off with April, I kept it pretty tame in April. The first book that I read was Fellowship of the Ring. So let's see here. Wow, isn't that very nice to look at? So Fellowship of the Ring is the first of 3 in the Lord of the Rings series. I listened to this as an audiobook. I do have the physical copy. I've read it before, so that's why I chose to listen to it in audiobook form, because I could listen to it while I work. If you don't know, I'm an artist, so I'm at my desk all day drawing, and I like to listen to audiobooks while I work. So yeah, so I finished the first Lord of the Rings book in April. Like I said, I've already read it. I knew the story. It's a familiar story, of course. So it was just kind of like easygoing and something, I don't want to say comforting, but something easy and familiar to listen to while I work, because I didn't have to pay attention to every single little detail. I could just, listen, and then if I zone out for 5 minutes, I'm not missing any major plot points. So that was the first book. And then the second book that I read was Dance of Thieves. This is the one that, for whatever reason, I didn't put that down there, so I need to fix that. This is the first book in a duology. It was good. It wasn't fantastic. I think I rated it, I rated it 4 out of 5 stars, because I don't know if I was burnt out from reading other books earlier in the year, or I just wasn't obviously these are the only 2 books I read in April, so I wasn't reaching for this. But it's an enemies to lovers romance story, but there's a strong female main character who has a lot of past trauma she's working through, and she ends up, it's close quarters enemies to lovers, so she ends up chained to the person that she is enemies with. So very good, but there was a couple points. The second half of it was good. I think I read sporadically about halfway through, and then I picked it up and just finished the other half of the book in a day or 2. So I think maybe some of my opinion on it might be based on my mood, and I will be reading the second in the duology soon-ish. I have it. It's on my list. It's my to-be read list, so we will see. The cover of this book was actually very pretty before I recovered it, but I'm a psychopath, so I recovered it. So then in May, I got back into the swing of reading and was reading a lot. The first book that I finished was Charlotte's Web. I listened to that as an audiobook. I know it's kind of a kid's book, but I have a list of 250 books to read before you die. and it's all the classics. It's, you know, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but it's also William Shakespeare, Charlotte's Web, Black Beauty, things like that, A Christmas Carol, the Iliad and the Odyssey. So it kind of gives you a whole plethora of books that it is believed that whoever, you know, I kind of stitched a few different lists together to make my list, but anyways, besides the point. It was good. I think did I give it 3 out of 5? Yeah, 3 out of 5. It was very childish, and I think I listened to it in one sitting while I was working, but it was still a good story. I kind of knew the gist of the story because I had seen the movies and stuff, but it wasn't anything spectacular, but it wasn't bad, I guess I'll say. And then next was, this is kind of random, but Origin of the Species by Charles Darwin. I am a big biology lover, I guess. I didn't major in biology, but if I hadn't majored in art history and business, I would have majored in biology probably. It was one of my favorite subjects in school, and I'd always wanted to listen to it. I listened to The Great Gatsby in quarter 1, and they reference Origin of the Species. I mean, what's his name references Origin of the Species and uses it as defense to be racist, which isn't good, but I was like, well, I want to listen to this because that was genetics, and not like eugenics, but like genetics in terms of what's that dude's name who did the peas? Oh my god, you know who I'm talking about. If you don't, then this is weird. But I find genetics in terms of animals interesting. I don't really care for, obviously, eugenics and, you know, pure bloodlines and people. In terms of evolution and the development of species and different animal traits being developed through evolution, I find very interesting. I wouldn't have made it through it if it wasn't an audiobook. I wouldn't have been able to read it outright. It was okay. I did learn a lot from it, and I found it interesting, but a lot of it was just relaying data, which I don't really care about. I think like a third of it I cared to know and to listen to. So if I don't know. I know it's a very like niche thing that a lot of people watching this probably don't care about, but there's also like 3 people that watch these videos, so I don't know. Next is Rhapsodic. That is a trilogy, I think, and it was pretty popular on Book Talk. I've had the book for over a year and I just haven't read it yet. And I actually, in May, signed up for Audible, so that was my 1 credit that I used for that month. It was really good. I went ahead as soon as I finished that and bought the next 2 in the series, and I will be actually reading them. I tend to listen to audiobooks for books that I know I'll get bored with if I read them like physically. But I think I would have gotten through that just as quickly as a physical book as I did an audiobook, if that makes sense. It was really good. It is about a siren who falls in love with a fae king, but he also is kind of like a hitman, kind of. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it's good. It's fantasy, it's romance, it's 18 plus. Dance of Thieves is a romance, but there's not anything in it, so it's like a young adult, but this was definitely like adult fantasy, so that was good, and I'm looking forward to reading the other 2 soon. Kingdom of the Wicked. Oh wait, I forgot to say. Rhapsodic. I have it. So the next one is Kingdom of the Wicked. Oh, it's upside down, so you can't tell when they're wrapped. I loved this book so much. I also read the second one. There's 2 out now. The 3rd one comes out in September. And I went ahead and read the second one also, which I'll talk about later. But this series was like made for me. Hello, editing Marris here. Apparently, I lost the clip talking about this book, which sucks because it's one of my favorite books. But what I was going to say was this book was pretty much made for me. It talks about, it's set in about the 1850s, and it is about a Sicilian witch who practices traditional Sicilian witchcraft. If you don't know, I am Sicilian and I practice witchcraft. So I felt very connected to this book and to the main character in it, and you just learn a whole lot of Sicilian history and traditions through the book, which I really enjoyed. It's also kind of a murder mystery type book because the main character has an identical twin, and at the very beginning of the book she gets murdered, the twin, and the main character summons one of the 7 princes of hell to help solve the murder of her sister. And there's also a lot of other murders going on with other young witches in the area. So it's a little bit of murder mystery, it's enemies to lovers, romance, and it is traditional folk witchcraft from Italy or Sicily. So yeah. Alright, we're doing great. My phone ran out of storage and is now dying, so it was fine. I think if I was in high school, I would have really enjoyed it. So the next book that I finished in May was The Bone Witch. I listened to this as an audiobook, and I'm glad I did because I didn't like it, which I'm surprised I didn't like it. A lot of people on TikTok recommended it, and it has really good ratings, but it was just boring. Nothing happened. I didn't love the world building, the concepts behind like powers and how that worked. There's 2 more books in the series, and they're free on Audible, so I probably will still finish the trilogy, but I was really disappointed in the book because I was expecting it to be great because it's hyped up as much as Kingdom of the Wicked, Cruel Prince, etc., etc. Speaking of Cruel Prince, that was the last book I read in May. It was so good. I had a really hard time because I have a bracket system of all of my favorite books. My favorite books for the year to find out which book was my favorite overall. And because I read this and Kingdom of the Wicked in the same month, I had a really hard time. I ended up going with Kingdom of the Wicked, but for June, it will definitely be the later books in the series because I finished the trilogy. But this was so good. It is young adult. It doesn't have any inappropriateness, but it is still an enemies to lovers romance. The world building is so good and the character building is so good, and there are so many plot twists that you don't see coming, and it was really good. I want more of them, but the last book was written in 2019 and they are not planning on releasing a 3rd one, or a 4th one, I mean. So it was really good. I think it's one of my favorite series. I completely devoured it. So speaking of, moving on to June books, the first book from June was The Wicked King. I try not to go completely through a series, only because I get slightly bored, I think, with the characters and the storyline if I read all the way through it. Like I read ACOTAR, I read the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd back to back, and by the 3rd one I was kind of tired, so I like to read something else in between, but I could not wait for this one because of how they obviously end on cliffhangers, and it's just, the whole series is good. I don't want to give anything away. This is another book about identical twins. So is Kingdom of the Wicked, and is there another book about twins that I read recently? I feel like there is. This book is worth all the hype that it gets, unlike The Bone Witch. The whole series, I mean, gets as much hype as it gets, as it deserves the hype it gets. There we go. So next, I'm not gonna, Lord of the Rings is on the bottom of my pile. I listened to Two Towers, which is the second book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Again, it was comfortable. It felt safe, I guess. Familiar. That's a good word to describe it. And I definitely want to go back and rewatch all the movies on HBO Max after I finish. So I haven't finished the last book yet, but I listened to The Hobbit, and then I've listened to the first two in Lord of the Rings. So once I'm all done, I'll have to go back and watch all 3 Hobbit movies and all of Lord of the Rings again. Oh, I forgot to put, so the next book I read in June was Queen of Nothing. I don't like to read my books while they're wrapped like this, so I wrap them when I'm finished, and I just haven't gotten around to wrapping this one yet because I wanted to wait till I had a few to wrap at once, just because I gotta get all the crap out for it. This was a fantastic wrap up to the trilogy. It did not leave you wanting, at least for me, it did not leave me wanting for anything. It was in a nice little bow. I feel like all of the characters got what they deserved, and I could see why they're not writing another one, but I do want more June and Carden's story. Carden, I don't know how I say Carden, because they kind of end up, well, I don't want to say they end up together, but I think we knew that. They end up together at the end, but you don't really get to see any of how that dynamic works once they end up together. It's like they end up together, and then after like this really hateful relationship, and then it ends. So you don't get to see how that dynamic works, and I think I would enjoy seeing that a little bit. But I can't recommend this series any more than I already am. And the very last book that I read in the second quarter of 2022 was Kingdom of the Cursed, which is the second book in the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, or I don't know if there will be more after the third one comes out in September. I don't have it physically because I had to check it out from the library. If you have seen my book wrapping video, you will know I am a crazy person, and I only like to purchase paperback books because I feel like I can like wrangle them more. Like I feel like when I have a hardcover, I have to do this number, and it makes my hands cramp up. And I just don't like hardcover books, which I know is the opposite of what most people think. But as we all know, publishers like to publish in hardcover for the first year of the book's release, and then paperback comes out. And Kingdom of the Wicked is not, or Kingdom of the Cursed is not available in paperback yet. It comes out in August, right before the third one releases. So I will be getting my hands on that. Anyways, that's not the point. It is so good. This series and the Cruel Prince series I'm obsessed with them right now. That's all I've read in the past. Well, obviously not all I've read, but those have been the two major series in the past 3 months. I will say this, and I mean, I don't want to, what do I want to say without giving anything away? I'll just say it. This entire second book takes place in Hell, and the entire first book takes place in Palermo. So there's a lot less Sicilian references and information about that, which is one of the selling points from the first book that I liked. It was still equally as good. I still feel like it is good without it. I can see why they obviously couldn't include that because they're not in Sicily and she's no longer with her family, who is these Italian witches. So I get why it's not in there, but that was kind of like, oh, like I wish more of that was in there. There are, I don't know why I'm holding this up. This is not the right book. There are so many plot twists and so many things that you don't see coming, but there are also so many little puzzle pieces of information that you get throughout both books that it's definitely a book you could read 2 or 3 times to be able to like gather all the pieces you need to piece it all together. Kind of like Harry Potter. If you've read those all the way through, there are so many little tidbits of information that connect in the universe, or like in the MCU, in the Marvel universe. There are so many little details that can be easily missed and you have to watch them over and over again to be able to get that, which I think is part of the thing that makes them so great. So this book series is definitely like that, and I cannot wait for the third one to come out in 3 months. I will have to check that one out from the library too, because it won't be available, but either way, I don't care. I will definitely be like first in line to get that. So that is all the books I read. I have about 10 books that I have physically that are on my to be read list that I hope to read in quarter 3. I will be, of course, making a quarter 3 video in the beginning of October, so keep an eye out for that. I hope you enjoyed this video. I tried not to spoil anything in these videos, just to give you like a review of what I thought of them, so that if you haven't read them, you can go read them, and any of the major spoilers won't be, spoiled. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see how I wrap my books and why I wrap my books and why I am an OCD crazy person, then I will link that video down below or in the cards. If you like book content, art content, car art content, sustainable living content, subscribe if you feel like it. If you don't, that's fine. I just appreciate you making it this far in the video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.